What is up, guys? Gannon here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the fate of my favorite sword in the entire series, Zoro's Shusui. Now, over here I have a replica of Shusui, and yeah, I know I'm like really nerdy. I do have like a fucking anime sword, but I did not buy it, okay? It was a gift, so it's a little less cringy, but Shusui means clear autumn water. That's basically the rough translation, and it is the Zoro's only black blade. Black blades in One Piece mean they're significantly stronger. They have heavy weight to them, and they're extremely durable. Same thing goes for Mihawk's black blade Yoru, which is said to be the strongest blade in the One Piece universe by Mihawk himself, and you know, I don't really have a tough time believing him. As you can see, it is fully black. I think the lower part in the anime is depicted as like maybe a purple, but the cool thing about this blade, obviously, the red line running through it that kind of just looks like teeth, and then the sheath is just my favorite part. Like, it has these little symbols on them that kind of look like that kind of remind me of the Sharingan a little bit. But yeah, Shusui, my favorite sword, period, in One Piece. The Ryuma Zoro fight was like amazing to me, like super badass. And today I think it would be really fun because we are going into the Wano arc, and Wano is the origin of Shusui. This is where Ryuma's body was dug up and Shusui was stolen. And it's really important to talk about whether this sword will stay in Zoro's possession. It's extremely important to me because I would really much like Zoro to keep the sword. It's my favorite sword of his out of any sword he's ever had. And we're going to be talking about the specific ways in which Zoro could keep the sword, or whether he's going to give it away. First thing we should talk about is kind of the little bit more into the story of Shusui. Shusui belonged to Ryuma, obviously the zombie samurai that Zoro fought on Thriller Bark. What everyone might not know, however, is that Ryuma is a character from a snapshot manga that Oda wrote, I think it was the early 1990s, called Monsters. Ryuma, in that story, used Shusui to slay a dragon, similar to Zoro. You'll see how Zoro's like a character parallel, and I actually believe he's just like Ryuma reborn, basically. So basically Ryuma slayed a dragon in that series. I've not read Monsters yet. I gotta get around to that because I always bring it up, but I've never actually read it, which is kind of, a little bit cheesy. Ryuma as a character is actually canon to One Piece. He was in the Monsters manga, but his character is canon to One Piece. So the Ryuma that we see in Thriller Bark is the same Ryuma that was in Monsters, which is a little bit hard to envision because I don't know if Monsters is actually, like set place in the One Piece universe. I don't think it explicitly was, but whether it is or not, their characters are canon to both like series or stories. So really interesting, really cool. And I'll put this up on the screen right now. Ryuma in Monsters basically looks exactly like Zoro did pre-time skip. So it's pretty much like Ryuma was a character in the Snapshot small manga, but it's almost like he kind of like reincarnated this character into something new that would be remembered, and that is Roronoa Zoro. Roronoa Zoro in general is just like one of my favorite characters in all of fiction. He's a total badass. So it's very awesome that we get this cross-reference, this parallel. And I think that one of my explanations for kind of the fate of this sword, and maybe even the addition of another sword, is a parallel as well. So I'll get into that in a little bit. One of the most obvious explanations for the fate of Shusui is that Zoro is simply going to return it to the Wano country. It is like a prized possession. It's like a sacred item that they really respect. It is their national treasure. So it could come down to the fact that Zoro would indeed end up returning it. Or he might even have to give it to Momonosuke after this arc is over. I don't know what Momonosuke's character is going to be like at the end of Wano. That's something I definitely would like to see, but it is a possibility since Momonosuke is probably going to be like the new shogun or whatever near the end of Wano. He's going to have responsibilities when this is all said and done. So Zoro might return it to Momonosuke, or he just might, which is basically the same thing as returning it to the country of Wano. Obviously, I don't want this to happen. It's like the most clear-cut answer for if Zoro is going to lose Shusui. This is going to be the reason why. So, Zoro could return it to Wano, but I really don't think I exactly see that in his character. I think Zoro's as much attached to the sword as, like, I am. Like, I love Shusui. It's, like, a seriously badass sword. I hope he never gets rid of it. My kind of explanation for the fate of Shusui, if it's going to stay with Zoro, is that, well, think of it this way. Zoro has 3 swords right now. He's got the Wado, which he will never, ever lose, obviously, because that's Kuina's sword, and it's like the core of his mission. Then we also have the Sandai Kitetsu, the first Kitetsu blade that's in the lowest Mito grade class. And then we have Shusui, which is like the badass, my favorite sword of all time. So, where's the odd one out? What's the one that's not, like, super important? It's obviously got to be the Sandai Kitetsu. I mean, it's like the lowest Mito grade. We've already come in contact with the next Kitetsu blade. Was it the Shodai or is it the Nidai? I think it's the Nidai Kitetsu. Yeah, I think it's the Nidai. So Luffy currently has the Nidai Kitetsu, and then we're also have met kind of the Tengu guy, the bladesmith whose ancestors crafted the Kitetsu blades. So I'm thinking at some point in this arc, Zoro is going to have to run into a blade that is superior to all of his other blades, right? I think Zoro is going to get a Supreme Grade sword this arc. Think about it, guys, okay? This is the arc where Luffy is going to, like, very closely approach or get to Yonko level. They've already, you know, directly threatened Kaido. Big Mom is here as well. Luffy's already been in her territory and fucked everything up. So they're directly opposing Yonko. This is going to be a war that's way bigger than Marineford. It's going to be the craziest shit we've ever seen. They're going to fight, like, astronomically strong enemies. I, for one, think Zoro is Yonko commander level, and he's going to have to take on, like, some of the strongest calamities. I think he's going to have to take on King, personally. I know a lot of people don't share that opinion. It's probably because I'm a Zoro fanboy, but I think Zoro's going to have the highest diff fight of his life against King, and I think during the process of this arc, he's going to achieve or obtain a Supreme Grade sword, and he's going to have to replace that with the weakest link in his arsenal, and that's the Sandai Kitetsu, which makes a lot of sense, because where is that blade going to go? Zoro probably wouldn't just throw out a perfectly nice blade, especially one with such history to it. He's just going to return it to its rightful owner. All the Kitetsu blades, except probably for the Shodai, I think that's the Supreme Grade one, I don't remember off the top of my head. It's going to be returned to the Tengu blacksmith dude, right? Because, like, it belongs to his family. He's its rightful owner. That would make perfect sense. I can't really think of any other way Sandai Kitetsu is going to go. I doubt Oda would actually break the blade, because it is one of 3 really important swords, even though it is the lowest Mito grade. Now, you're probably wondering, Gannon, like, what's this, like, we haven't really been alluded to any Supreme Grade sword. Well, I have a theory, and I came up with this theory last chapter. I mentioned in my last chapter review, is that I believe that, like there is a parallel with the sword and Zoro and Ryuma, we're going to see, like, a very, like, huge parallel with Orochi in his name. Orochi is obviously a Hydra, dragon creature. Whether we know it's a smiley or a legitimate devil fruit, we don't really know. In my last video, I kind of mentioned how I thought it was looking a lot more devil fruit-like, and then a friend of mine mentioned to me how his fruits, like, structure is very similar to Momonosuke's. So I don't think he's like a shitty smile, and I don't think he's like a legitimate devil fruit. I think he's somehow got hooked up with another Vegapunk edition smile fruit, and that's basically the result of his fruit. So he's like a decent, you know, synthetic devil fruit rather than the shitty smile fruits that Kaido's producing. Anyways, in the story Yamata no Orochi, which is the story of the storm god Susanoo coming down from the heavens after he was banished because he was, like, you know, trolling his sister Amaterasu, the sun god, he goes down and he's trying to, like, you know, redeem himself. So he approaches this elderly couple, and the elderly couple is all like, yo, we used to have eight daughters, but every year this Hydra creature, this Orochi, comes and eats one of our daughters every year, and this is the 8th year and we only have one daughter left. You know, Susanoo's like, yo, I'll help you, but you gotta let me marry your daughter, because I need some hoes. I'm getting lonely down here. So they're like, alright, bet, you know? She's better off married to you than dead. So then Susanoo leads the Hydras into the individual gates of the god, baits them with, like, an alcoholic, you know, intoxicating substance. They're, like, out, and then he slowly chops off all of their heads with his swords. And then because a couple of heads, like, have items in them in some of the versions of the stories, but in most versions of the story, the 4th head that he chops off, he finds a really badass sword called the Kusanagi. Now, the Kusanagi, or the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, it's a Japanese sword. It's like a regalia sword of Japan or whatever. It's like one of 3 legendary swords of Japan. It's translated in some stories as the Heavenly Sword of Gathering Clouds, which is like, holy shit, that sounds badass. But in most versions of the story, it is just referred to as the Grass-Cutting Sword. I'm thinking that in their pursuit to overthrow Orochi, to overthrow Kaido, and also, if you haven't noticed, there's just been a bunch of characters this arc who have just, like, unsheathed badass swords. Like, they look really cool. Eventually, we're gonna run into a Supreme Grade sword this arc. Like, I'll bet money on it, and I'm gonna bet that it's gonna be the Grass-Cutting Sword. I mean, what else would it be if we have this Orochi parallel, and we're looking for a legendary sword that's connected to Japanese mythology? That would be perfect. And also Kusanagi, dude, that sounds badass. So, I'm not saying that Zoro himself is directly gonna, like, beat Orochi, because I think Orochi's a little bit, like, too weak to present a challenge for Zoro. But I think symbolically, they're overthrowing Orochi, they're overthrowing Kaido, like, this corrupt power that resides in Wano. In that pursuit, Zoro is going to obtain, in some fashion, the Supreme Grade sword, Kusanagi. So, yep, guys, that's basically what I think the fate of Shusui is going to be. I would actually prefer to see Shusui stay with Zoro. I feel like he's definitely going to use it, and if Zoro plays a huge part in the liberation of Wano, then they'll probably let him keep the sword. You know, he is the reincarnation, essentially, of Ryuma. He's basically the same character, and I think that Shusui is going to stick with him. It would actually be kind of a bummer for me personally for Zoro to just return it to Wano country. I don't really see that happening unless he probably, I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't just see it happening, period, in my opinion. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little discussion. Please go down in the comments, tell me what you think. If I've analyzed something wrong, let me know. If you have any opinions, something you'd like to see for the next video, always leave it down below. I read every comment. I try to respond to all questions. I'm pretty much on that shit. Yeah, I love comments. Please like and subscribe, and guys, I will have to see you in the next one.